Councilman Carroll, I believe you have a special intention.
I got it. Hold on.
She's doing it.
Okay.
Thank you, Nat. I would like to ask for the city, for the council, everyone here today to keep in their prayers Miss Michelle Johnson. She is the daughter of Miss Vera Perkins. Miss Perkins and her family have been part of the city of Kenner for many, many years. She's in the process of organ donations for I believe it's her lungs and maybe a couple of other things. And she finally has been able to coordinate getting the organs that she will be needed. Now it's a process of getting the funds in order to be able to have the operation. So on behalf of the Perkins family, the Johnson's family, and the city of Kenner, which they are part of our family, I ask you for your prayers for the families.
Thank you. I also have a special intention. I ask that you keep in your prayers my sister Cheryl Tharp, who was diagnosed today with 2 tumors in her brain. So I ask you to keep her and our family in your thoughts and prayers. Let us bow our heads and remember that we are in the presence of the Lord. Dear God, spring is a metaphor for change. Some changes we eagerly await, and some changes we plan, and others arrive uninvited. To all these changes, we ask the gift of your perspective, beckoning us to expectation, hope, and rebirth. May the sunlight and the rain be reminders that you are at work renewing the earth. As God of renewal, you are ever at work in our lives too. Open our eyes and our lives to the needed changes in our lives this spring. Awaken us to new life and perspective. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Councilman Impostata has a special request.
I was just going to ask that the family of Mr. Charlie Hebert, supervisor at Woodlake Playground, be kept in our prayers as Mr. Charlie's mother passed away roughly a week ago. So he's a Kenner employee, and his wife, Joanne, served the city for a number of years as well.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. Councilmember Impostata, could you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes. I'm sorry, sir. Let's amend the agenda real quick. I've received a request this evening from the administration to amend the agenda this evening to add item 4C, which is a report from the administration describing the new master plan for operating Kenner playgrounds, parks, and play lots by introducing sports academies at certain playgrounds.
Motion by Councilmember Reyno, second by Councilmember Conley to suspend the council rules. All members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to suspend your rules. Motion and a second to amend the agenda now to add item 4C.
Motion by Councilmember Reyno, second by Councilmember Conley to amend agenda, including item 4C. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to add item 4C. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the regular council meeting of March 19, 2015. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. Item 2A is a resolution granting an alcoholic beverage permit to the Friends of Rivertown on May 1st, 2015, May 8th, 2015, May 15th, 2015, May 22nd, 2015, and May 29th, 2015, at 2015 4th Street, being property owned by the City of Kenner in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 1876/15. The City of Kenner to hold a public gathering on April 18, 2015, May 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th of 2015, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. for the purpose of a Movies in the Park at Heritage Park in Rivertown, Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3B is application number 1877/15. The City of Kenner to hold a public gathering on May 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th, 2015, from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. for the purpose of Music in the Park at Heritage Park in Rivertown and Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3C is application number 1878/15, Our Lady of Perpetual Help School to hold a public gathering on April 18, 2015, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the purpose of a craft fair at 531 Williams Boulevard in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, Ms. Annalisa Kelly of JEDCO to give a PowerPoint presentation regarding economic development activities for the year of 2014 with a brief update on 2015.
Ms. Kelly? Good to see you.
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you so much for including our presentation on your agenda this evening. My name is Annalisa Kelly, and I'm the Economic Development Specialist for the Jefferson Parish Economic Development Commission, specifically for the City of Kenner. I'm here with Lacey Bordelon, JEDCO's Deputy Director. Our purpose for coming here before you tonight is to share with you highlights from JEDCO's 2014 annual report of our Business Retention and Expansion Program in the City of Kenner. Each of you have a copy of the report. Please feel free to review it at your leisure and come back to me at any point with questions or comments. So the partnership between the City of Kenner and JEDCO began officially or formally with a CEA, a Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, January 1st, 2009, which made 2014 the 6th consecutive year of the Kenner and JEDCO partnership. Under this agreement, JEDCO is charged with providing economic development assistance and expertise to the city and its business community. As the economic development specialist at JEDCO assigned to implement the CEA, I'm here to provide you with a summary of our core services of the CEA deliverables that were carried out in the City of Kenner in 2014. The first and most essential of our deliverables to the economic health of Kenner pertains to JEDCO's Business Retention and Expansion Program, which focuses on outreach and assistance with existing businesses in the City of Kenner to see how they're doing, provide individual resources and assistance, and to address any issues. We embrace a strong business retention strategy because studies have shown that the majority of new jobs in a community come from existing businesses. Existing businesses contribute greatly to the local economy, and meeting with existing businesses can provide us with advance warning of any problems that could lead to a business closure or relocation or layoffs, as well as uncover opportunities for businesses that we can help with resources with tax incentives or financing. And it also provides us with qualitative data about the economic health of the community and valuable feedback that can identify trends, strengths, and areas for improvement. So I'll be sharing that data with you tonight. As part of the program in 2014, we provided direct outreach, meaning phone calls, emails, and in-person conversations to a diverse mix of 167 Kenner businesses and held one-on-one business retention visits with 40 Kenner businesses. We also sent informational letters to several hundred Kenner businesses about JEDCO's services, including letters to every registered manufacturer to keep them apprised of annual incentive deadlines. We specifically targeted the top economic drivers in Kenner, and in 2014 also reached out to businesses that may be impacted by the airport's expansion in the Bainbridge and Crestview industrial parks. When we sit down with a business leader, we have an in-depth conversation about their business and ask a variety of questions, and so I've aggregated this data for you tonight. It's important to note that not all of the questions are answered by businesses. Sometimes they choose not to answer every question, but of the responses we got, I've put together this data. As you can see in this slide, the majority of the businesses we met with primarily serve a regional area, meaning not just Louisiana, but neighboring states as well, almost 60%. And then a third primarily deal with the national market and then a local market. It says 0% international, but that's the primary market. We did meet with several businesses that did have business overseas. It was just not their primary focus. The companies we met with had a good mix of employee size. The bulk of the companies we met with, 55%, were fewer than 25 employees, with the remainder, 15% being 25 to 50, 15% being 100 to 200, and the remainder falling in the rest of that spectrum, with 7.5% being over 200 employees. And on that note, JEDCO will meet with businesses of any size. We met with a business that had 2 employees last year and a business that had over 700. So as long as the business needs our assistance, we'll meet with them. The companies we met with in 2014 represented a wide range of industries, as you can see in this slide. The majority were in the manufacturing and construction industries, followed by professional services, particularly engineering firms, and transportation and warehousing. Of the companies we met with, half of them were the only location of the business or a single location headquarters, while about 22%, 23% were branch operations, and an equal number, 22.5%, were headquarter operations that had other locations outside of Kenner. And then about half and half rent and owned or buildings in Kenner. Some of the really great news that we found from meeting with businesses last year is of the businesses we surveyed, all of them reported that company sales were either increasing or stable, and that they would be projected to increase or stay stable in the next 2 years, which is quite remarkable considering the economy in the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of the business leaders we met with did remark that they had taken a big hit from either Katrina, the recession, and/or the oil spill, but that they had since rebounded and were doing quite well. A reflection of the fact that they're doing well is that nearly 2/3 of them are planning or considering expansions in the next 3 years. Of that latter group, the ones who are considering expansions, it's usually contingent on finding a suitable location or financing or getting their contracts in order. And JEDCO will work with the companies on the site selection and financing side to make sure their expansions are a reality. And we're currently working with a few Kenner companies that want to expand to find them suitable locations. So of those companies that have definitive plans to expand, the 36%, I've included here a snapshot of what that means in terms of the impact. So nearly $13 million combined total investment, with 227 jobs to be created and 47,000 square feet of building space. And that's just the numbers that they were able to report. Some of them had plans to expand but didn't know the exact numbers yet. More good news, 97% of companies we surveyed did not anticipate layoffs in the next 6 months. One company did have definitive plans to do a layoff because of complicated debt issues, but not due to their current sales and revenue. They actually were doing well, they just had these debt problems. Nearly 60% of companies have increased their employment in the last 2 years. And we did hear a lot from businesses, not just in Kenner, but in Jefferson Parish overall, about workforce development issues. And so we've been working with companies to identify ways they can help out with that issue. And there's a lot of problems with they have the open positions that are skilled and technical positions, but may not be able to find qualified workers or workers with the appropriate work ethic, experience. And so we've definitely identified that as a priority for 2015. So as part of our meetings with business leaders, we asked them about what the strengths and weaknesses are of being in Kenner and Jefferson Parish overall. We asked them what they like about being in Kenner and any issues. So in 2014, 96% of businesses we surveyed reported satisfaction with services they received from the City of Kenner and Jefferson Parish governments, which is great. Some of the things they specifically mentioned of being strengths about Kenner specifically, either the community or the city government. They mentioned location as a major positive for being in Kenner. They like the proximity to the airport, the ability to easily access I-10, 310, Veterans, and Airline, and that it's easy to get into New Orleans and River Parishes both, but they don't have to deal with the traffic of downtown New Orleans. Kenner is perceived as safe by these business owners. And we heard high praise from numerous businesses about the Kenner Police Department and Kenner Fire Department specifically. A couple of the businesses we met with had to call either the police or fire departments and said that they just did a phenomenal job. They were extremely impressed. Several businesses remarked that they enjoy the strong community ties, in Kenner, and the events that are put on by the city, as well as the growing Hispanic population. A number of the business owners I met with are residents of Kenner, which boosts their ties to the community and contributes to a strong business network. Businesses repeatedly remarked on strong, engaged, and responsive government, both in City Hall and in City Council. A couple businesses mentioned Kenner 2030 specifically, saying it was a great plan and exciting, and they made mention of the major municipal projects happening, like the new airport, Lake Town, the beautification. The airport in particular was brought up a lot as both a positive thing. They were excited about what it might do to the area and their property values, but also a point of concern because they were worried about what the construction might mean for their business operations and for road access. As for the community weaknesses that were reported on, the quality and size of available industrial and warehouse building stock was brought up, and that's something we've seen at JEDCO as well. You know, if a manufacturing prospect needs a certain building that just isn't there, they'll move on. So that's just a problem we've noted, and a few business owners noted as well, about how there are lots of 5,000 to 10,000 square foot buildings in Bainbridge and Crestview, but not larger buildings. Zoning was brought up by businesses in the industrial areas north and south of the airport. Specifically, that's not ideal to have industrial areas next to residential neighborhoods. And finally, a few infrastructure concerns were brought up, namely street flooding in the Bainbridge area and traffic light timing on Veterans and Williams. So overall, we provide a number of assistances to businesses. We help with tax incentives, site searches, issue resolution. With financing, we approved loans to 3 businesses in Kenner that were either moving to or expanding in Kenner. Real estate connections, small business assistance, marketing tools, and then demographics. One of the things we can do free of charge to any business is provide demographic information in the area around their business or elsewhere. Tax incentives specifically, we had 2 manufacturers that we met with enroll in Louisiana tax incentive programs, which are designed to encourage job growth and investment. We meet with businesses and let them know about these programs because they can be cumbersome, so we want to make sure they are aware of them and that they know the steps to take and whether they're eligible. So the 2 manufacturers we met with who then subsequently enrolled in tax programs, both of them took part in the Quality Jobs program, which encourages expansion through job creation, providing an annual payroll tax for each new full-time job that pays at least $14.50 an hour with health benefits. And it requires you to hire a number of employees. You have to increase your payroll by $250,000 a year if you have under than 50 employees. And one of the companies took advantage of the Industrial Property Tax Exemption Program, which provides an ad valorem tax abatement on any improvements made to the building. Site searches. In 2014, we submitted properties within the city of Kenner to site search requests from 24 businesses. And most of the requests received by JEDCO were for industrial buildings, followed by vacant land, retail and commercial spaces, offices, and hospitality buildings. And there were some good success stories from our site search assistants in 2014. For example, one of the site search requests that came to JEDCO was from representatives from the At Home store. We connected them with the Pavilion. And another came from the international IT company Fourth Source, who ended up moving into Kenner in October 2014. And we're currently working with a few other prospects. We're hoping to have more good news for you in the next few months. Beyond the business retention program and expansion program, we do other support for the city of Kenner. We create and update a community and economic development profile, which includes a wealth of different demographic information, quality of life information, financing, tax incentives, And then this past year, we actually created a new specialized highlights packet for business recruitment purposes that's tailored to each prospect that we really want to come to Kenner. And it includes real estate and highlights about what's happening in Kenner. And actually, I have a copy tonight if anyone wants to see it. Then we also update and maintain the Business Resource Guide, which is a brochure that we developed that has a step-by-step information and contacts for anyone who wants to start a business in Kenner. And we keep that stocked in various departments and also the Hispanic Resource Center. And then other activities, we support the deliverables of the Kenner 2030 plan. We worked in 2014 with the City of Kenner in planning and marketing the Lake Town development, including developing and hosting a webpage about the Lake Town RFP, identifying a variety of comparable developments across the United States and the world. We're serving on the selection committee, and we've advertised the RFP through the Urban Land Institute and other national development-oriented publications. We're an active member of the Economic Development Committee and Business Development Subcommittee, and work closely with the Esplanade Mall management, including current interim managers and those in senior leadership roles in Simon's national offices to brainstorm creative ways, and we work closely with council members on that as well. In 2014, we joined the new Rivertown Main Street Board and specifically highlight available Rivertown properties for sale and lease on our website. And finally, we also developed a coming soon web feature for airport buyout properties and have been in communication with both airport officials and interested businesses and developers about the timeline and plan for their auction. Thank you so much for having us. We're continuing our business retention program for 2015. We've met with 11 businesses and sent out quite a few letters to different businesses about meeting with them. We're working with a variety of prospects and currently assisting a Kenner business that's looking to purchase a new building in Kenner with a loan. And if you have any businesses in your districts that are in need of assistance, please reach out to me. We're more than happy to meet with them. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, first of all, for coming and giving us an update. I have one question. I know some of the other council members may have questions as well. When you have somebody that wants to come here and we don't have the warehouse or the facility size, are you working with developers to see if they would come in and build something for those companies?
Well, and it depends on what the company is looking for. A lot of times they want to move quickly and they want to be in an existing building. But we do, if it's a financing problem, we'll work with them for financing. We do reach out to private companies that may have buildings that are not on the market. We have connected them with a company that will do renovations as part of a lease agreement. They'll do the renovations themselves, and that's been successful in the past. Only so much we can do, but we try and do whatever we can to get them to come here. So
Good. Thank you. Councilmember Secure, let me give the floor to you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly, for that presentation. That was certainly good information to hear on the fine job y'all are doing in promoting Kenner. I did notice you had a guide for business for Kenner.
yeah.
And is that something that y'all hand out to these people who ask? Because
Oh, that's not it. I do have some copies here.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my question then is could you perhaps make a handful available to each of us? Because
Oh,
we
yeah.
have people who come visit us all the time discussing starting new businesses, and I would certainly like to hand that out to them if that's...
That's a great idea. And if we can help with that too, we work with startups to help connect them to different resources to get business plan creation. So if you do meet with a business and you want us to be there, let us know. But yeah, I'd love to give you these.
Good, just make sure
Yeah.
you send some to all of us, because
Sounds good.
like I said, I've already met with some, and I have referred them to y'all, but
Right, yeah.
having that to hand to them at the time would certainly be
Absolutely.
advantageous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carroll, let me give you the floor here.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Ms. Kelly, again, thank you today. Thank you for the presentation. And also, I have talked to a couple of existing businesses who are about to expand, and they have said that the support from your office has been, fantastic.
Great.
They look forward to the growth for their company. And as of last week, I called you up to talk about the possibility of because most of the questions come from individuals who never ran a business and want to be able to get all of the resources and information. And those are the ones that are kind of, they want to do it, but they're a little afraid to be able to know which direction to go in. And I can understand that. So thank you for, for the conversation to be able to assist in trying to put something a little short symposium up for people that I may try to get together and have the presentations from your office and some other resources. So we'll be talking in the future about that and look forward to your support.
That's great. Yeah, in addition to our individual meetings with businesses, we also have a seminar series called Prosper Jefferson that touches on a lot of those issues. I think the upcoming one is going to be about social media, how to use that for your business. And then we also do, as you're saying, these business outreach efforts, like to a service briefing, basically. I met with the Rotary Club a couple weeks ago. We'll meet with any group that wants to have us, basically. So I look forward to meeting with you.
And thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Klein.
It's in Landing at Home in the Pavilion Mall, and I'll speak about that a little bit later. But thank you. They're starting to remodel a building at the Pavilion Mall at the corner of West Esplanade and Chateau Boulevard. And it's a huge store. It's a super store, and it's a furniture-type store, and I'll explain that later. But thank you for all your effort.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's their first Louisiana store, and it's in Kenner, so that's really great.
Yes, I understand they have stores in 22 states, and they have 23 right next to us in Texas.
Right,
alone,
yeah, they're based
23
in
stores.
Dallas. Yeah.
So it's the first one in Louisiana, we think.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you. Councilmember DeFrances.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ms. Kelly. You and I are working on some projects right now with the Economic Development Committee, and working together, we're going to make those actually come to fruition. And a lot of them will impact all the malls in our area, so keep your fingers crossed, and we're going to make it happen. Thank you.
That sounds good.
There's a button.
Thank you.
Great.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much again for having me, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions or business referrals.
Will do. Council
Yes,
Clerk?
sir. Yes. Item 4B, is at the request of the Planning Department, a brief presentation by the Tulane Regional Urban Design Center regarding its final study report for the establishment of design guidelines and other matters for the Rivertown Historic District.
Mr. Hebert.
Thank you, Council President. Back on October 16th, at the council meeting, I'd introduced to the council Mr. Nick Jenish and Grover Mouton, who are with the Tulane Regional Urban Design Center. And back in August of last year, we had contracted with them to assist us in developing design guidelines for the Rivertown Historic District. Since then, they've completed their work, and I invited them back this evening to this council meeting so that they can provide you with a summary presentation of their final study report. So at this time, I'll step aside and I'll let Nick and Grover give you the presentation.
Welcome, and if I could get you to state your name and address for the record.
My name is Grover Mouton, and I direct the Tulane Regional Urban Design Center, which is located in the School of Architecture at Tulane University.
Hi, Nick Jenish, also with the Regional Urban Design Center at the School of Architecture at Tulane University.
The floor is yours.
I'll just open up real briefly. I'd like to thank the council and for giving us the opportunity to provide you with these guidelines. I want to just say one thing about design guidelines. What we're about to show you, we've gone through a process of site evaluation, plus we've met with the committee, we've met with the review committee, we met with you, we met with several other people in the area. Design guidelines, if they are implemented correctly, can create a beautiful and wonderful environment. We've done this in other cities, and we're hoping that we will be able to do the same and have the same kind of success that we've had in cities like Mandeville, that for you. And so with that, I'll let Nick try to give you an overview. We've got a PowerPoint with some of the examples.
And one other quick note, Grover mentioned we had met with the existing commission that does review work in the Rivertown area. One of the things right up front that we heard from them is that they were looking for kind of more targeted rules with which they could use to properly review architectural projects. It's difficult to review architectural projects, period, because they are often complex and involve a number of design issues. But if you have a document, even if it's a set of guidelines that refers to the type of architecture and quality design that you're looking for, there's something that they are able to then point to within the review. So we'll go through quickly. We're not going to go through line by line the guidelines, but we will provide you, if you don't have them already, with a hard copy for your more thorough review. We'll just give a couple examples here. So in the first, you can go to the first slide, and then the next slide. This is just the target area, just to remind everybody, we're looking at the existing historic district. And currently, it's defined as the levee to Kenner Ave and Daniel Street to Compromise. Obviously, Williams Boulevard from Kenner Ave to the river is really what defines this area visually. This is what people know and think of as Rivertown, in addition to some of the side streets with the auditorium and theater and other things. So we go to the next one. And this, I won't necessarily read this, but this is just kind of the need for design guidelines. Grover summed this up, what design guidelines can do. And this is repeated in our final document, so you can refer to that there. Basically, it says that you have a system in place. We're not inventing anything new. We're kind of giving them new fuel and new fodder with which to review the incoming projects. So the commission already reviews these projects. If you go to the next slide. The architectural context, the following photos are provided as local examples of existing architectural styles. They're not meant to provide prescriptive guidance for new projects, but rather inform citizens about the styles that can already be found in Rivertown. So you can see the first one is a historic storefront. The next one is a new house in the Victorian style. That's obviously not, it's on a big lot. It's not in the Rivertown area. So if you go to the next one, this is a more likely Victorian style. It's not a true Victorian style, but it has Victorian adaptation. Something of this scale is more likely to be found in Rivertown, as this building obviously is right there on Williams. If you keep going, one of the other things we noticed, and we can get into this in a minute, is that the residential areas that are included in this historic area actually have all kinds of different architecture. And we didn't want to be too limiting to those folks with new development and color choices and architectural styles. So I think what we ultimately recommend is a targeted set of guidelines that really focus on the commercial core along Williams, and then just recognizing the architectural styles that exist in the residential areas surrounding. So Craftsman Bungalow exists right around in that area. If you go to the next one, there are ranch-style homes. There's Acadian homes. And so there are a number of different residential styles. And we'll finish on colonial. In this particular example, it's Spanish colonial. That's right there on Williams as well. And so what we want to focus on, more important, you can go to the next slide, more important than individual architectural styles are the design principles outlined in the guidelines and already evident in many existing Rivertown buildings. So if we go to the next slide, just as an example, this is the crossing building on Williams by the railroad track by Kenner Ave. And it's a great example of a renovation, great example of initial architecture, but also a quality renovation. And some of the reasons that can be pointed to, and we actually include this in the document so that citizens applying for a permit in this area would have this type of an example to refer to and understand what the committee would then be looking for. So for instance here, the building entrance is highlighted using a recessed entryway and a parapet storefront detail. So these kind of facade details that you see all along the facade there are important architectural details. And the rafter tails and brackets show visible support for the roof system. Tall traditional windows are used. They're in proportion with the building's first floor height, other things like that. That's getting a little bit into the nitty-gritty, but it really allows the commission, the Historic District Commission, to have a dialogue with folks. And even ahead of the commission's review, if somebody came into planning department, the planning department could give them a heads up, hand them these guidelines, and they would understand going into that review what folks are what the city of Kenner is looking for. So if we go to the next one, the design principles, equally important to the character of Rivertown is the preservation of its notable historic buildings. So what we're really saying is, if you go to the next slide, what we're looking for is the walkability, the low to no setbacks that already exist on Williams Boulevard. That's what really makes Rivertown what it is, and that's what's going to be encouraged using these guidelines. So street trees, street lamps, a neutral ground, brick pavers, street furniture, local businesses, nearby parking, and buildings developed at the lot line make this stretch of Williams Boulevard very attractive for pedestrians. So the idea is to kind of grow that interest based on those design principles. If you go to the next one, this is a quirky building that also, in some ways, because it's been there a while, represents Rivertown. But in fact, it's actually kind of a fantasy or themed architectural detail applied to a historic building. So that's not it's not typically desirable in pursuit of highlighting the original architecture and heritage of historic towns. This is quirky and it's there already, but it wouldn't be what the guidelines would encourage the city to pursue. So if we get to the guidelines themselves, and just to note, there's a number of guidelines. We will probably touch on just one or two from each category fairly quickly, so we can give you an idea of what those guidelines are. This first category is building design elements. Buildings should maintain classic proportions. For example, smaller columns should be placed closer together for a more vertical proportion, and as the structure becomes more horizontal in scale, the column should have additional mass. So that sounds fairly broad, but using our examples and the rest of the guidelines here, and the fact that there is in fact an architectural expert on the commission, and in fact we're going to recommend additional architectural experts for that commission. The group as a whole will be able to make those very specific architectural recommendations to folks as they come in. And as Grover can tell you from his experience in Mandeville and other cities, he still sits on the design review committee in Mandeville. It's often a work in progress, but it's also really meant not to be a hurdle for folks. And usually the things that are being suggested, they find a way to suggest things that are not going to cost a great deal more money. It's really supposed to be a quality design thing, not an expensive materials or anything else.
One of the things that we've learned in Mandeville, and hopefully it'll happen here, once, let's say, development picks up, gets a stronger impact, we recommend that the individual or group that intends on doing the work to come to the design review first, so as to present what they have, perhaps the simplest sketch, so that, and in Mandeville, what we recommend is do not hire the architect first, but come in and explain to the design review what they would like to do. Of course, there's a great deal of building going on. Therefore, it allows the design review committee to actually educate the person or individual or corporation coming in as to what would be the best method by which to go about doing this. And this has proven to be very successful because oftentimes the design review committee almost does a very abstract design which meets all the design guidelines which are listed for that individual or that group. And therefore, it gives you a product which is much stronger. Now, with that in mind, that means that the design review committee has to really understand the design guidelines clearly, and that's why we advocate designers to be engaged in this process to help these individuals.
Right. So get to that and a couple other important issues. Let's run through a couple of these other examples real quick. Just to demonstrate, if you go to the next slide, in a commercial building on the left, a traditional rigid awning provides cover from weather and protection from the sun. Additional windows above above allow natural light to enter the first floor area. So that's a detail that adds design to the facade. And on the residential side, brackets support porch roof overhang. High ceilings and tall windows allow for the movement of air and light. Shutters can protect from weather and solar gain. So rather than these things seeming like arbitrary design details that are being imposed by a city committee, there are reasons behind these in the history of architecture that can be pointed to in these guidelines, so that there's a reasonable document that they can refer to. If we go to the next one, materials, we talk about which materials are appropriate based on what's there, but also based on the history, and how a material is used is just as important as what material is used. If we go to the next one, the commission also asked us to look at color, and I think that came up in our initial discussion even last fall. It's difficult to produce a specific palette, but what we've done is chosen a couple of historic palettes that commercial companies, including Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore, provide as a baseline that would be approved by the commission. If you'd like to go outside of that, again, we don't want to restrict folks, but you would have to, there'd be a more rigorous review. But we do provide a couple of palettes that would be by right approved within the district that are historic colors. If you go to the next one, canopies is a specific category. And you just see some examples there. If you go to the next one, site features, that gets into things like fences and hedges and talks about creating a street edge. So the use of low fencing along the street lines helps define the public from the private, gives a scale to the sidewalks, and provides a screen for parking and services. So just like you saw those buildings up on the street, if the building is set back, you still have to provide a hedge line or fence line to hold that street edge, which really gives it a more urban, walkable feel. And finally, signage. There's actually really good guidelines already in place about signage, and according to the commission and the planning department, those seem to be working well. We actually saw that in action at one of the commission meetings that we attended. So we are proposing that those would stay in place. And let me just run through a few examples. This gets back to what Grover was talking about, why cities adopt design guidelines. So if you just flip quickly to the next photo. This is just, this is a side facade. It doesn't need to have any embellishment, but in this case, they've taken the time to protect from rain and sun, and it provides additional detail to the side facade, in addition to the landscaping. So these are the types of things that are encouraged. If you go to the next one, one of the guidelines that we didn't highlight today talks about disruption of long, uninterrupted horizontal planes. So rather than looking at an uninterrupted side of a building like that, I think there's a better example. If you actually know the next one. So the guidelines aim at things like that and really force you to break up the facade of the building. And again, in this case, it could be just a break in the stucco with another material, which doesn't cost any more. It just provides some detail for the eye, to draw the eye. And on this slide, no building with an industrial appearance is allowed, such as pre-engineered metal building. That just goes with, that's consistent with a number of historic regulations in cities all over. If you look at the next one, smaller buildings should reflect the design of the historic styles, and larger buildings should be divided into smaller elements in order to incorporate historic design context. So what we're talking about in Rivertown is mostly smaller buildings, except for the municipal buildings. And so this is a fairly large building, but it's been broken up into different styles and materials and details that help it fit in with its context. If we go to the next one, building should have substance. Design should include base, intermediate, and cap. Changes in materials should have a clear line of demarcation, either by offset, reveal, or border. And so in this case, they're using different materials, but it's essentially a box. If you go to the next building, it's not exactly comparable. It's a different program, but it includes a lot more architectural detail, protection from rain and sun, and so it's a better example of what we're looking for. If you go to the next slide, also adding to the guidelines, and you'll see in your copy, some additional recommendations. And these just kind of help bolster what we think the commission is after in adopting these. So the first one is is renaming the Historic District Commission the Historic District Design Commission. That simply puts an emphasis on the fact that we're advocating for quality design. The second one is to require city and commission review of major interior renovations. There was one precedent case where a major interior renovation, someone had put a lot of money into their interior renovation, and that really dictated choices about windows and other things on the exterior. So when they came for an exterior review, which is all the public sees anyway, it's difficult to turn them down on those decisions, even if they aren't the best architectural decisions, because they had already made a significant investment on the interior. So like Grover said, if they come in, the commission's set up, it's not overly taxed at the moment with cases to review. So if they come in early and often is kind of the mantra, they can hopefully review those things ahead of time. 3 is to reduce the size of the Historic District Commission. And that's simply because it's just not necessary to have as many folks. It's usually easier to get consensus with a smaller group. It's laudable, certainly, to have broad community participation. So if that's what the city would like, that's certainly fine. This is just, again, in comparison to other places we've worked and other places that we've observed around the region. And number 4, remove city council representative from the Historic District Commission. I'll be quick to note, especially in the presence of Councilman Carroll, that the perceived problem, the reason that that most cities would do that, we did not observe. It's not an issue that we observe. We were welcomed warmly by Councilman Carroll. Often cities will not include elected officials at these review meetings simply because of a perceived influence that they could have even as a non-voting member at that commission. Again, not something we observed, just something that we wanted to note as an option for you in comparison to other places that have similar guidelines. Number 5 is to allow the qualified architect member to vote during project reviews. Right now, they are an advisory member, and we feel that this, in addition to the next recommendation on the next page, which is the addition of an additional qualified architect and having them both be voting members, would aid in the addition of these guidelines. Some of the guidelines really do require some technical knowledge about architecture and its implementation and building systems. And so it's helpful to have more folks familiar with that. And they can certainly advise the rest of the commission as well, who, as residents, are certainly qualified to be on the commission as well. Let's see, the 7th one was to expand architectural references beyond colonial and Victorian. Those are the 2 styles that are mentioned currently in the current HDC guidelines. And we're expanding that just to recognize the additional styles that we noted in the area. And then number 8, in conjunction with the laudable efforts of Rivertown's nascent Louisiana Main Street designation, the city of Kenner should use its significant property holdings in the neighborhood to incentivize private investment. We just heard from JEDCO and the new Main Street organization. It sounds like that's happening. So it sounds like the city is working on that. Number 9 was make sure links to recommended color palettes are available online. We can certainly help with that, and we can also provide hard copies in different city offices where people might come and get a permit. Number 10 on the next slide was create a smaller commercial core in the heart of the district within which design review will impose the strictest interpretation of historic architectural standards. I'll show you a map of that in a minute. The idea being that there's really a core even within this small district that's the most important visually, and that we wouldn't want the most strict guidelines to burden the residences around that. So there's a slightly less restrictive set of guidelines for those. And number 11 is to expand the historic district. So if you go to the next slide, that's the current area. If you go to the next slide, The idea of expanding, and we've done this in other places, is really about gateways. So it's about, once you get to Williams, you will have already come along the river and come down Williams all the way from Airline and really understand that you're entering a historic area. Now, as Grover said, these things happen over time. It's beautification over time. We're not requiring everyone in this district to come up to the standards of the guidelines. It's simply about new construction. And so, given the good work of the commission, we think that you could get more out of what they're doing, frankly, and it would allow you to capture those gateways. To the west, it allows you to capture the historic school building that could be redeveloped one day. To the east, there's a couple significant houses that you would capture within the district, and then to the north, you would capture all the way up to the intersection at Airline. And so finally, the number 12 is to expand the scope of design guidelines along Williams Boulevard. The guidelines in Mandeville actually started as commercial corridor only. They were really trying to address, they said we've got a gridded historic downtown along the lakefront, and the commercial corridor is really what's new and out of place. And so they put guidelines in place to make sure that when you have a Wendy's, when you have a Sonic, and other examples like that, they're building in a way that's sensitive to the architectural context of Mandeville. And so even though Williams is mostly built out, we feel that you can still have impact over time by imposing such guidelines, similar to these along the Williams Boulevard corridor. So a couple of examples, the results that you get. Here's a McDonald's. It's just properties that are built that are scaled down. Signage is not 30 feet in the air. There are lighting and signage regulations that allow you to kind of tone down some of these national chains. If you go to the next one, that's of course not from here, given the snow, but you can see it's an understated McDonald's. The next one is a gas station that fits in with a certain architectural style. The next one is a new Walgreens in its normal model. The following slide is a more historic version with brick and awnings that you'll also see around towns that require this sort of thing. The next one is a typical Sonic. The one following is again a toned down version that provides the same service. And then a standard Wendy's, and the following one is a Wendy's with landscaping, brick, awnings, and other historic details. So finally, there's a bad parking lot and a good parking lot, which the guidelines can also help to address. Really, in those big commercial places, when you start looking at Williams, which is truly a vehicular corridor, you're looking at landscaping. It's a big component of it. It's right. These guidelines really focus on the architecture. If you spread along Williams, these kind of guidelines, you can really look at signage. I know you've looked at some signage regulations and brightness of signs and things like that in the recent past. You can start to tackle more of those issues. So without going on too much further, we're happy to take questions.
Councilmember Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Mr. Mouton and Mr. Ganesh. Thanks again for coming. Thanks again for all of your hard work. When we started this process, about a year ago, I think, and it was obvious that, not only from the standpoint of the historic district did not have the guidelines, which we were presented today, but a lot of people really weren't familiar that they were actually part of the historic district, which I believe that is the area where I think the attention to be able to pass on this information is going to be more valuable. I believe that Mr. Hebert with the planning and the code, Ms. Valot, will be able to administer the program for businesses coming in, because they have to go there first. The challenge will be for the people who've been living in this area for some of them many, many years, to be able to get on board with this. And I read in the beginning that there will be some type of a public meeting to address, this is where we are, this is where we're trying to go. We're not trying to be a dictator or anything, but for you to recognize, and I believe people will take pride when they buy in in the beginning, that they're a part of it. It's their livelihood, it's their children's livelihood after that inheritance. So that is good to have, and for people to know that they're a part of something, special. And is there like a schedule in place now to be able to, and maybe Mr. Hebert can answer that, to be able to present to the public, to get this information, a little bit at a time to get it, and don't feel like they're overwhelmed? It's good to see that. So the guidelines are a segment of a bigger plan, and I'm glad it's not that frightening, that it's in many, many pages, and people won't be afraid to delve into this and to read it, you know. And also, thank you for taking me out of harm's way about not recommending me be on part of that. So thanks a lot for that, too.
We hope we're covering a lot in a short period of time. Again, it puts some hard work at the feet of the commission itself, and we want to work with them to help them understand it, but also work with the public. So we're happy to attend. If there is an opportunity, we're happy to participate.
Yeah, Councilman Carroll, I think we're in the final stages of putting together a draft of our new zoning ordinance, and once that's completed, we will work with each council office to have town hall meetings and then present it. As part of that, what we're going to recommend is that their recommendations, or specific ones, be included into the Rivertown district regulations. So they'll be presented at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is going to be fantastic. And, we'll be able to place it on the website, information, even hard copies is great because, it's an older community. A lot of people may not be into the internet that much.
Sure.
But, to be able to get something hard copy in their hand to digest is an advantage also, not only via the internet or the computer. So thanks again, and I look forward to this. Look forward to, for the city and for especially the people who have been living here in a long time, and for future businesses to be able to come in and take advantage of what we have to offer. And I think it's going to be a good thing. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Carroll. Thank you, Mr. Mouton and Mr. Jennings. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Item C, at the request of the administration, a report describing the new master plan for operating Kenner's playgrounds, parks, and playlots by introducing sports academies at certain playgrounds.
Mr. Maracoli? Mr. Mayor?
Who's going to, you?
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you all very much. Some time ago, we had major conversations, I know, with some of the members of the older council and then the ones on the new council. We've talked about this. Recreation has been something we are trying to improve in the city of Kenner to make it better for everyone. With a graying population and the number of playgrounds we have in the incorporated city of Kenner versus the unincorporated area of Metairie, with the number of playgrounds they have that cater to a larger population, we have to think out of the box to try to do something to improve our playgrounds. Now, of course, we've always said Jefferson Parish has 10 mills for recreation. Kenner has none. So I want to commend right now my CAO, Mike Quigley, my Parks and Recreation Director, Ken Maracoli, and Councilman Impastato, who have traveled the state on a fact-finding mission to figure out what it is we can do to better our playgrounds in Kenner and make them something that everyone wants to be a part of. And I believe the plan that they have put together that is going to, that y'all have all pretty much been briefed on, that won't come up till the next council meeting, but I wanted to make sure, if there are any questions as we move forward with this, I want to make sure we get everything hammered out before the vote. I believe we're going to be trailblazers on this. I believe this is a move in the right direction. We've already seen what's happened at Westgate Playground, something that Councilman Conley brought to us years ago when he was a city attorney with the Voodoo Fast Pitch. They've taken over a playground that was totally underutilized. We have other playgrounds that are underutilized. And it's a little disheartening. I know, with the previous discussions we've had with the old existing council, everybody was trying to hammer me that I was trying to close playgrounds. All we were looking to do was to consolidate some. You cannot throw up a fence around a playground and put a lock on it and neglect it. It's always going to be a playground for the neighborhood. It'll be a passive type playground. You know, when you don't have kids, the kids are losing out here, and that's what's at stake. They're not being able to compete in their age groups. They're having to be shifted around to other playgrounds. So we've got to figure out the best way for the kids. And I think this move in the direction that Mike and Ken and Councilman Impastato have worked very hard on, looking at what other recreation districts do throughout the state. You know, this is something we need to do. Kenner was one of those cities that as we had the population explosion between 70 and 80, they were throwing playgrounds up everywhere, trying to have as many neighborhood playgrounds as they could. When you look at newer communities, or even some older communities that had more land and developed a little slower, they have these huge playgrounds where everybody goes to them. And Mike quickly used to say this, the most underutilized thing at a playground were the bike racks, because kids aren't riding to the playgrounds anymore, and that's one of the things I've been noticing over the past 5 years, and as I go around through different parks and playgrounds to see that. Parents are bringing their kids to the playgrounds, parents are being there the whole time and participating. I even know when my brother played and Councilman DeFrancis's kids played on teams at Bertolino and with Dominic and Dominic's dad, I know parents brought them to the playgrounds back then. So again, Kenner is a great community. We have a number of playgrounds. We need to identify the best playgrounds, put them into the best uses, and figure out what we can do with the other playgrounds. And I think through the work with through this ordinance that y'all be reviewing and voting on at the next meeting, I think it's going to be something that we're going to be a step ahead of everybody else, because what they've done is take the best from everywhere and put it all together. And that's what I want to commend them on. I mean, this is a move in the right direction, and it is for the kids. That's what it's all about. We have to get over that parochialism in my district and my playground and this and that. We have to look at the betterment of the kids of the entire city of Kenner. And that's what I stress to y'all, and we've got to be open-minded about this. And from what I understand from all the meetings that y'all have had meetings with, y'all have been very open-minded, very receptive, and asked some great questions. And I thank y'all for that, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike now.
Yeah, just to reiterate what the mayor said, I think we're being very progressive with this. There's many features of this ordinance, and we're calling it a master plan. It'll pave the way for some things that we think will really benefit the city, benefit the kids. It'll also formalize some of the things that the Parks and Recreation Department's going to do. So we think this is a step in a good direction. And again, it's not on the agenda till next week, till the next meeting. And we hopefully everybody will support it. And if anybody has any questions in the next 2 weeks, please give us a call. I know there's one little thing we're talking about amending already. So if anybody has any other questions, please just give us a call, and we'll be able to work out any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. Council Member Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd like to commend Mr. Maricoli and the Recreation Department for being progressive, for thinking about things that we have to do for the playgrounds, because I'm not ashamed to say it, a great advocate for the playgrounds. And I believe all of my actions for the prior council, I never hammered anybody, but it is my responsibility to be able to bring to light aspects of things from District 1 that is not well known by individuals at the last council or this council that I have privy to. And it is my responsibility, and it will be my responsibility, to be able to vet this information. We're not going to talk about it tonight, but to ensure that the concerns of the people, the taxpayers, the citizens of District 1 are addressed. Because they may not know. I mean, we have different communities from the river to the lake, and it's just different. There are things, particularly for District 1, that are different from District 2, 3, 4, and 5 from a recreational standpoint that is important, that myself, I have played on the playground, coached on the playground, worked in recreation, that I have a good vantage point to know exactly how the citizens feel from an administration position, from a player's position. And I think the good thing about this that is different from before is that we have had an opportunity to talk about it, to talk to one another about it, about what are some of the concerns, what are some of the challenges that needs to be addressed. And as long as we continue along this avenue, this venue, we will be successful, because at the end of the day, it is about the children, all of the children, to ensure that all the parents feel comfortable enough to provide a program to their children, all the children. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Carroll. Councilmember Impastato, you have the floor.
Yes, and I certainly don't want to belabor the point, as it's only up for first reading tonight, but just to address the comments made by the mayor and his staff, as well as Councilman Carroll and everyone, and to make sure that everyone in the public understands the key philosophical component to the legislation is freedom. Freedom for the families and for the kids involved. And that is the key component in the philosophy, giving them the freedom to choose what is best for their kids, what environment is best for their kids to participate in recreation. And that's what I'm the most excited about. And we'll talk more in detail certainly in 2 weeks, but I would welcome any comments, any questions from anyone in the community, as well as my fellow council members, so we can take this step to, as to quote our mayor, to be trailblazers and do something that we're already getting comments from people in neighboring recreation departments who are hearing about what's going on and are fairly impressed that we're taking a step that they have thought about, but maybe haven't quite had the ability or taken the initiative to do yet. So I look forward to addressing this over the next 2 weeks. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Councilmember Impastato. Councilmember Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Maricoli, I understand that the new program will apply to underutilized playgrounds. And in particular, at the present time, there's one playground that is being wholly underutilized, and this is what the Sports Academy may apply to.
Right, it may apply, and again, we have a long way to go before everything is decided and put in place. So yes, there is some underutilized playground, or one in particular right now, you know, and there's a couple that are being considered, but the bottom line comes into is, as we talked about, is a freedom of choice for all the parents involved, you know, to get the kids to play, to be involved, and frankly, to pool our assets and do things that we can do to enhance the recreation, I guess, the recreation experience that the families are afforded. So that's the big thing about this. But yes, as of right now, everything is moving in that direction. But again, there's a long way to go. It's not something that's set in stone that will be done tomorrow, you know, or even after this vote, that it'll be done the next day.
Yeah, and I understand that under the new ordinance, a child can play at whatever playground he decides to play at.
Right, there's going to be some stipulations in that. You know, we're asking them to declare where they want to go and to go to play at the playground there and utilize that. Some of it is mainly guided to the circumstances of families now. There's multiple people living in households. Some people are being, you know, with the working families, the two-parent working families, that grandparents are picking up kids, and the kids that are in that neighborhood are playing with their friends and wanting to go to playgrounds in areas that they don't particularly live in. However, they're there with the grandparents or other people throughout the evening and day to make it more convenient for people to be involved with. So yeah, so there's a variety of different things that go there, but that's one of the components.
And the new ordinance will make it more efficient and more convenient for the children as well as their families?
Absolutely.
And it'll be more cost-effective for the city?
Absolutely.
We expect that the city will save some money?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Klein, and thank you, Mayor, and Mr. Quigley, and Mr. Maricoli, and Councilmember Impastato. I know y'all worked real hard on this, and I know it was open to all of us, and we all had a chance to put in some input. So thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Item 5 is acceptance and rejection of bids requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. We have none. Item 6 is change orders requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. We have none. Item 7 is acceptance of committee findings for final passage. We have none. Item 8 is re-subdivision ordinances for final passage. Item 8A is summary ordinance number 11,829, an ordinance approving the plan of re-subdivision of parcel Y1G1A, Driftwood Park subdivision in Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, and 2 parcels Y1G1A1 and Y1G1A2 Driftwood Park subdivision, which parcel is owned by Walmart Real Estate Business Trust. Item 8B is summary ordinance number 11,830. An ordinance amending ordinance 6354, approving the conversion of a general advertising sign to a digital LED sign for Pelican Outdoor Advertising Incorporated on parcel 1A, Kenner Heights subdivision in Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana.
Motion by Councilmember DeFrancis, second by Councilmember Conley on the consent. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structure located at 416 27th Street in Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Klein to open a public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to open your public hearing.
Ms. Fallow?
Yes, sir. The structure in question is an elevated structure on pilasters bearing the municipal address of 416 27th Street. The property is owned by Ms. Wanda Dufour and others. It was determined that the property was unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 and others of the Code of Ordinances for the city of Kenner. Notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them of the property and building violations. After no response from the property owners, a curator was appointed by the city.
Can, hold up one second. We don't have it. Yep.
Yes. As of this date, the violations have not been corrected, nor have there been any attempts to comply. The city has the city has not been contacted, nor have there been any attempts to comply. The city has been maintaining the property for several years, and there is currently an amount owed in the amount of $9,556.19 to the city of Kenner. The city of Kenner also contracted the services of an engineer, and it is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the city, who provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Power and utilities have been disconnected. Structure shows evidence of recent improvements because the exterior siding seems relatively new. Underside of the structure is open, allowing access to animals and rodents. Debris is located around the perimeter of the building. Most of the windows and doors are secured. Rear exterior door is open, thus allowing access to the interior of the building. Portions of the roof shingles on the east side of the structure are missing, damaged, and thus causing a leak and damage to the roof sheathing and interior sheetrock. Copious amounts of trash throughout the interior of the building. Based on the report of the engineer, the building poses a safety hazard due to the current condition of the structure. Based on the visual observations, the structure is a serious public hazard and health concern to the public. We recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance and have it abated by demolition or brought up to the current city codes and ordinances.
Thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience or?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Sophie Rosado of the Rosado Law Firm, and I was hired by the city of Kenner to be the appointed curator on this matter. I tried to locate the Dufours, which included Wanda Dufour, Mary Edith Dufour, Frida Annette Dufour, Michelle Winona Dufour, Sonia Jameson Dufour, and Carlene Danielle Nagan, and Freddie Dufour. I ran an internet background search on Intellius for all of these defendants. I called all the numbers on the Intellius reports for all defendants, to which I either left a message, was not able to leave a message due to certain numbers not having voicemail capability or being disconnected, no longer in service, or being told I had the wrong number. On January 14th of 2015, Sonia Gregory called and stated that it was her ex-husband's house. She informed me that the mother abandoned the house and she knows about the liens on the house. After Hurricane Katrina, the mother moved to Nebraska and they have not seen her in years. Ms. Gregory said Freddie is deceased and the property should be demolished. She said she was going to try and get the contact information for Carlene, which was the niece, and the only one living currently in the city of Kenner that she knows of. I informed her that I was not her attorney, solely the curator appointed on this matter, and she should contact an attorney to see if any property rights are involved. To date, I have not heard back from her. I then mailed 54 letters to the addresses provided by the Intellius search via certified mail. 52 letters were returned unclaimed and 2 were returned claimed. Not convinced the named defendants had been found, I ran an ad in the Times-Picayune on January 18th, 21st, and 23rd of 2015. I received word regarding contact information for a Michelle Dufour to notify her of the hearing for the demo and left a message at each phone number. I have not heard back from Ms. Dufour to date. Also, the City of Kenner's Department of Inspection and Code Enforcement received a handwritten letter from Wanda Dufour that is dated January 7th of 2013, which is Exhibit F in my curator's note of evidence. To date, I have not received any other phone calls regarding this property, and those are the steps that I took to locate the named defendants.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Okay, motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Klein to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Klein to approve. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structure located at 543 and 545 Salvador Road, Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Impastato to open a public hearing. Council members, please vote. Ms. Fallow.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
The structure in question is an elevated structure on pilasters bearing the municipal address of 543-45 Salvador Road. The property is owned by Mr. Albert Green, Jr. and others. It was determined that the property was unsafe and dangerous under the building codes of the City of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 and others of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Kenner. Notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them of the property and building violations. After no response from the property owners, a curator was appointed by the city. As of this date, the violations have not been corrected, nor have there been any attempts to comply. The City of Kenner also contracted the services of an engineer, and it is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner, who provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Structure is abandoned. Portions of the roof sheathing have signs of rot. None of the doors and windows are boarded up, thus allowing access to the interior. Structure shows evidence of remodeling and improvements. Portions of the floor sills have been replaced. Copious amounts of construction debris throughout the interior. The entire exterior southern wall is missing, thus compromising the lateral stability of the structure. Portions of the floor sheathing are missing, thus posing a dangerous condition. Sections of floor beams are severely damaged or missing. Based on the report of the engineer, the structure is a serious public hazard and is structurally compromised. Based on the visual observations, the structure is a hazard and recommended that the city take the steps to declare it a public nuisance and have it abated by demolition or brought up to the current city codes and ordinances.
Thank you, Ms. Vallow. We have a curator on this one as well.
Good afternoon again.
Thank you.
I was appointed as the curator to locate Vinnie RV, Albert Green Jr., Nettie Price Merritt, Joseph Lee Merritt, Audrey S.E. Turner Green, and Albert Green Sr. I ran a background search on Intellius for all of those names. On January 22nd of 2015, I called for Mr. Timothy Hand, who is a possible attorney for Vinnie RV. I called him several times, and I was able to get in touch with him. He stated that Mr. Green, not Vinnie Arvey, that he was possibly representing Mr. Green, but not Vinnie Arvey. He was not sure why his name was attached to the property as a possible attorney. He said he would do a little bit more digging and get back with me. I called several other times, but to date have not heard back from that attorney. On March 13th of 2015, after still not hearing back from Mr. Hand, I sent him a certified letter attaching the Times-Picayune ad that was run regarding the property and informed him of today's council meeting. However, I still have not been able to reach Mr. Hand to date. I called all the numbers on the Intellius reports for all the defendants, to which, again, I either left a message, was not able to leave a message due to certain numbers not having voicemail capability, being disconnected or no longer in service, or being told I had the wrong number. On January 28th of 2015, Natasha Hayes, a daughter of Nettie Merritt, stated that her mother is deceased as of October of 2014 due to kidney failure. She stated her mother was real ill, was living in skilled nursing, and that Miss Merritt had 3 children total. Her father was living at the property but doesn't know his whereabouts, and a nephew was dealing with the property, but he has passed away. I called her back and left a message on her voicemail on February 25th of 2014 to inform her of today's public hearing. On February 2nd of 2015, Vinnie Arvey called stating that her husband owned the property, not her, and that he passed away on June 30th of 2014. She said she spoke to a Rich at the City of Kenner Code Enforcement in November of 2014 and said there is nothing she can do about it as her husband paid a contractor to do the work and the contractor did not do the work. On February 25th, I called Ms. Arvey and left a message on her voicemail informing her of today's public hearing. On November 3rd, another phone number called to state that that was not the number for Robert Green and was the wrong number, and to date, no one else has called back on any of the phone numbers. I then mailed 41 letters to the addresses provided by the Intellius search. Of the 41 letters, 35 letters were returned unclaimed and 6 were returned claimed with return receipt. One letter that was mailed to 3030 Congress Boulevard 14 in Baton Rouge was returned to me on March 13th of 2015 as returned to sender unclaimed and unable to forward. And I also received the certified slip back, and it's dated February 3rd of 2015. So I've included both the letter that was unclaimed and the certified slip that shows a signature. The United States Post Office tracking system states that the letter was unclaimed on March 11th of 2015, so proper service was sent either way. And not convinced that I had found the defendants, I ran the ad in the Times-Picayune on February 22nd, 25th, and 27th, but have not heard from any other person on this matter, and those are the steps that I took to locate the named defendant, and my search is concluded in this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Would you please give us your name and address for the record?
Good evening. My name is Natasha Hayes. I reside at 13469 Wells Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. I did get Ms. Rosato's message about the hearing in regarding the property. I am the daughter of Nettie Merritt, who passed away of kidney failure, and Joseph Merritt Sr., who also are...
Can you speak up a little bit?
I am the daughter of Joseph Merritt and Nettie Merritt. I've spoken with Miss Rosato. I say it correctly. How you doing? Over the phone in regards to the property. What I did find out, I did not know the whereabouts of my father, but I found out that he is currently in psychiatric care at the VA facility in Biloxi, Mississippi. And my mother is deceased. Albert Green is a first cousin of mine who is also deceased. I do not know how to get in touch with his wife or children. I respond to this certified letter that was given to another relative of mine. It is my grandparents' home, and if possible, I can work with code enforcement until we work through these layers of, I'm more than willing to. That's all I have to say. I also placed a call to the Office of Court Enforcement, and I believe they said they were going to pass on the message to Ms. Valley, and I would receive a call back, and that didn't happen either.
Tomorrow.
And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Carroll, you have,
The business day.
oh, sorry.
You haven't.
Thank you, Mr. President. Miss Merritt, you can please stay. Ms. Valor, do you want to respond to any of the comments from Ms. Merritt first? As she said. Yeah, and I'd just like you to give us a little more an update again on the property, just on dates and information that has been passed, and either from your office, information that may not have been presented by the attorney. Because from the signs, Mr. Merritt, the house itself, and one of my concerns is that it is right in between two of the top lots, Bessie Hammond and Bertha Lee Jackson. Obviously, a lot of children, and after summer comes up, they're going to be there, playing a whole lot, and that structure is just, it's not a good spot for children to be having to pass with all the things that could happen. And I don't want to even say some of the things that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And things have been going on for so long, and other than trying to work through something, we could be talking about another year trying to work through without the proper financing to work through it. I mean, I haven't seen the report from the engineer to see what kind of shape, and maybe Ms. Vela can stipulate that again, but it could be a possibility, as opposed to the city knocking it down, that it could be something your family can do where you accrue the cost to knock it down and it don't go into, from the city standpoint. I think that may be something better to do, as opposed to the city going forward and knocking it down. And maybe Ms. Vela can also explain, how does that process work? What do you have to do to come in to get a permit, so forth and so on. But I just think that unless you have something definite as a plan from financing to be able to renovate the home, if not, another option would be to demolish the home from your position. And I would like for Ms. Vela to explain the process for that, if the family decided themselves to demo the property.
And I apologize if my office didn't get back to you. I didn't receive a message. I'm not saying that you didn't, but I apologize if I was unable to get in touch with you. However, this has been on our list for some time, and as the curator indicated, that she sent out over 52 different letters, or 47, I can't recall which one. But was succession ever opened on your grandparents' property? Were you put into possession of the property? You may be considered an interested party, but you may not, most likely, are not the owner of that property.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct in that assumption?
The only, there haven't been a succession done. My grandmother did, and I was able to locate. Where actually was a sale done between my grandmother and my father and his brother.
So that would make them the proper parties for ownership of it, that would have
Right.
more of an interest in it. And I understand you're coming to make sure that everything's, properly done. However, it's the position of the department that because of the condition of the property, it should be taken down immediately, since it's been in this condition for a substantial period of time. I don't believe that it's a property that can be rehabilitated. If you've passed by there, I went there, I believe, on Thursday of last week. There's a whole exterior side that's completely missing. You have
I did.
portions of floor that are completely missing as well. So I would still recommend that the council vote to demolish this property. There are some time delays that I'm obligated to uphold, and in that time period, if you're able to retain the services of a private demolition company, that may benefit you as will place liens on the property for the cost of the demolition itself. That's about the only recourse, I think, at this point in time you would have.
Okay.
Ms. Fowler, could you say, what does that mean, coming into your office to get the permit for the demolition?
Yes, she would have to come in and file for a demolition permit and have a licensed contractor take it down. The property would have to be, all of the debris would be removed, and the property would have to be filled in and brought to grade.
Right, and just to expound on it for Ms. Merritt, that would include also the utilities to,
The utilities have been disconnected already.
all of them are
Yeah,
disconnected,
I
okay.
believe we have all utility disconnects.
Okay, so Ms. Merritt, I think because the home, I don't believe is salvageable to fix it, but,
I stand corrected, power is still connected.
okay,
So
so,
that would be, we'd have to do disconnects on it.
right,
Which the city will do if the council approves demolition.
right. But it would be something if the family chose to hire a professional demolition crew to do it, they would have to proceed with the Entergy to turn off the property, correct?
Amy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Merritt, like I said, I think this is the position as opposed to forego the liens on the property to be able to hire someone to demolish it, and that way you have an opportunity now in the future to be able to determine what you would like to do with, or what the family would like to do with it. Since there has not been a succession, you are not the owner, but it could be something that could be agreed upon to demolish the house. Is that something that you would even, for the family speaking on their behalf, consider?
If it's necessary, I mean, if it has to be done, like I said, I'm just trying to see what actually is going on with
Well,
all of it.
I think the action one would be tonight, if we vote on it tonight to demolish it, the city would do it, which would in turn put a lien on the property.
Well, no.
The option I suggested is if the family could hire someone to demolish it, it will still be in the ownership of the family, even though they haven't gone through succession, but it won't be a lien on you still will own, the family will still own the property, but you're gonna have to be able to come in to Ms. Vallott's office, fill out this application to get a professional to demolish it. Those, to me, are the only choices we have here tonight.
Okay, then I'll try to contact family and try to do it.
Well, on that being said,
That-
on that being said, and I would like to give until the next meeting, to defer to the next meeting, to give her an opportunity to vet this with her family member, to see about if they were going to have the resources to demolish it on their own. If not, then by the next meeting, if that is not presented from a financial standpoint that you can do this, then for us to proceed and to for the city to demolish it. So that's what I would ask my colleagues. One meeting deferral to give the family an opportunity to hire their own demolition crew to demolish it. If not, then for us to vote to demolish it after the deferral.
If I may interject, I'm somewhat opposed to it just because of the condition of the property. It's been exposed for this long period of time. However, our contractor that typically does the demolitions is going to be knocking down a very large commercial structure, which is going to take some time. Then we have the 27th Street structure that's, it's going to take a little bit of time. I think if we can vote on it, it still will allow her an opportunity to speak with her family members. I don't think it's going to, the demolition of the property is going to take place within the next 17 to 20 days at all.
Maybe not, and it probably won't, and I think, and I'm not saying that this is more an advantage for the family, but it is an advantage to defer it 1 week to vote on it then, because if they're not gonna do it anyway within the next 2 weeks, then what does it hurt to be able to afford them an opportunity to vet this and to talk about it? If they can't get to it anyway to knock it down, it's all gonna come down to within 2 weeks to be able to start the process anyway. And I don't see anything happening between now and the next 2 weeks. So that's what I would request, to a one-meeting deferral, with the understanding at that point, at that meeting, the family going to have to show that they're able financially to demolish it. If not, then we start the process. I think that's fair.
Councilmember Carroll, you said that this property is in between two preschools? Is that what you?
No, I never said preschools.
That was the other.
I said tot lots.
Tot lots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Betsy B. Hammond and Bertha Lee Jackson.
Mr. Power, question.
Councilman Conley, you have the floor.
And if they don't do it,
All right, my concerns are that the director indicated that this was a safety issue, and that this is a safety issue. What can be done if we're to decide on this deferral, to board this? Is it boarded up? Is it
No.
secure?
No, it's not, and it would probably cost a whole bunch to, Dana, if we can get to that one picture that shows the exposed side of the wall. And then we also have pretty much the large portion of one half of the building, there is no floorboards. It's completely exposed. If you look at that photo right there, you'll see that the whole side of the building is completely exposed. There is no flooring on it. The other side, it's like a double shotgun. The other side is in as poor of a condition as that. It's not as exposed, but, you know, it's going to cost the department a substantial sum of money to board the building. You're basically putting sheathing on the side. You're doing the building, but you still have exposed on the floor. But this is one question that maybe this might solve everything, is that we could stipulate that she has 30 days to repair or demolish.
That's where I was.
And then if it's not done within that 30-day time period, then the city of Kenner can go forward and demolish.
And would that give you 30 days would be enough time for you?
Be enough time.
Okay.
Do I still have the floor?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Councilmember Con.
See, that's why I had the floor. That's what I was going to suggest. Go ahead. And ma'am, have you seen this property?
I was able to go and pass and see it, yes.
You do agree that this is a safety hazard, especially being between two tot lots where the children play? You know,
I
this city
do.
has
I do
pledged to
agree.
take a zero tolerance attitude towards blight, and I wouldn't want to live next to that, and I don't think it's fair to ask other people to live next to that. So this council's going to work with you to get this done, but it's, you know, it's going to take a lot of money for you to do this, or for whoever owns the property to do this, and I don't think this council's going to stand to be too patient on this, given the condition the property's in right now. But I'll work with the councilman in District 1, as long as there's steps to secure it, make it safe, and, you know, I'll work along with the councilman in District 1.
Okay.
We're gonna have to put the stipulation.
Okay. Let me give, if you could take your cue off,
I can turn him on, Councilman.
Okay.
Leave your cue alone.
want to give it back to Councilmember Carroll.
Go ahead, Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to remove my motion for the deferral with the stipulation to give the properties owners a 30-day time frame to demolish the properties, as suggested by my counterpart, Mr. Conley. And I can give him a couple of more minutes, too, since he thought I took his minutes to speaking. So
He's going to give you a couple of more minutes. Wait.
And then if it's not done in 30 days, you said it's
Okay.
Code enforcement has no objection to that.
Okay, does anybody else want to speak on this? Okay, Councilmember Segura.
Ms. Merritt, I just want to clarify some confusion that I was getting. You mentioned you wanted time to resolve this. Are you trying to resolve as we think that to rehabilitate this property, or just to determine who owns the property?
Well, that's the thing that has to be established too. Like it has me from my parents or Albert, my cousin Albert, who I know has passed away. I don't know his family members or how this property would be divided. But
Okay, but are there any thoughts of rehabilitate, or is any monies out there to try to rehabilitate the property? Or you just
my
trying to?
husband and I are open to it. I was told by neighbors that prior to my cousin's death, that was a renovation or something that he had started, where he took the side of the house off. Would there be permits or anything that he had to apply for that would prove that? Or I think that's how it got in that condition.
Okay, because
I
just
mean-
from my point, it seems like you have two different issues. You have one issue that has to try to determine who is the owner of the property.
That's
And then they have to determine, do they want to proceed with rehabilitation? Otherwise, it's our decision, or should be our decision, what to do right now with it. So I just wanted to clarify if there was any knowledge of monies available by some people to rehabilitate it in this timeline. Are you, yes, no?
I don't know what the cost is. I mean,
Okay,
that's
okay,
things
that's-
I have to.
Thank you. Councilmember Klein, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Can you put your,
It's on.
Ms. Fallon,
That's what I said.
Could-
The contact us.
could you give us an estimate on the cost
I'm
to
just
remodel
trying
this
to
structure and to disconnect the utilities?
I could not, sir, simply because I'm not a contractor. I would imagine it would be fairly substantial in the, given the condition of the property as it is now. But I'm not, that's not my expertise in terms of calculating the construction cost for it.
Yeah, an attorney. Right.
What kind of legal right?
okay. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
I had a question. My name is Claude Hayes. This is my wife.
Uh-huh.
And I think my wife is more or less speaking on her mother's behalf, who is deceased, who's passed. And I think she's more or less trying to figure out what's her legal right to the property. We can get the financing done. That's not a problem. But I don't really know what she thinks, what is her legal right to the property with these other parties being involved.
Right. And yeah, you're going to need to contact an attorney on that. In other words, we can't give that much time. This is a safety issue.
Right, I got it.
This property needs to come down. And the question's going to really be, do you want to take the property down, hire a demolition company and take it down yourself? Or do you want the city to take it down and then they're going to lien the property? Even though the property has a lien, you still have whatever rights you have. If you get an attorney and they say, hey, you have rights to this property, you still have those rights.
Right.
So, so we appreciate you coming, and did you want to talk?
I just wanted to clarify something for them.
Councilmember DeFrances, hold on, let me,
It's on.
okay.
I just want to clarify, what Councilman Carroll originally proposed was to have one meeting deferral, which would have given them less than 30 days. What Councilman Connolly gave you was a whole 30 days. So basically, now you have time to do whatever you have to do, whether it's to determine who owns it, whether or not you can go through some process to actually obtain ownership of the property, whether or not you want to just pay by yourselves to demolish the property, or in the end, let the city do it. So those 30 days gives you that time to go through all those options and make the decision. And this way, you have the necessary time. And I just wanted to clarify it. I think it got so muddled and so confused that I don't think you knew what exactly you were getting. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember DeFrances. Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Impostata to close public hearing. Y'all consider.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Impostata on approval. With the 30 days. Do we need to,
No, that's fine.
that's okay?
As long as we clarify, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Council members, please
Please vote.
vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. We have none. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution accepting the Municipal Water Pollution Prevention Environmental Audit Report for the period of December 1st, 2013 to December 31st, 2014, and to inform the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality that the following actions were taken and additional actions will be taken by the City of Kenner.
Motion by Councilmember DeFrances, second by Councilmember Conley. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13B is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 909 Curtis Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Reyno. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13C is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structure located at 815 29th Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Segura. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13D is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 413 and 415 Duncan Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Impastato. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13E is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 1212 31st Street in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Reyno. Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. We have none. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance setting out a master plan for the operation of Kenner's playgrounds, parks, and play lots that incorporates sports academies at designated playgrounds to take advantage of the changing face of youth sports programs in the metropolitan area and around the country, including guidelines for the Parks and Recreation Director. Item 16B is an ordinance approving a conditional use for a warehouse to be located on Lot 21A, Square 20, Crestview Office and Industrial Park Subdivision in Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, which property is zoned AH1 Aviation Heavy Industrial. Item 16C is an ordinance amending Section 13-71 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kenner in Louisiana relative to the prohibition of smoking within 25 feet of entryways of buildings owned, operated, or managed by the City of Kenner, and at certain recreational facilities owned, operated, or managed by the City of Kenner. Item 16D is an ordinance amending Article 18, Section 1801, and Article 4, Section 15-51.1 to provide for and establish criteria to define and identify heavy commercial vehicles and clarify the regulation of both on and off street parking of heavy commercial vehicles. Item 16E is an ordinance approving an agreement with Linfield, Hunter, and Junius Incorporated for professional services relating to resident inspection services for the wastewater treatment plant number 3 improvements project in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16F is an ordinance approving an agreement with Meyer Engineers LTD for professional services concerning Kenner 2030 plan, Kenner City Park improvements, skateboard park improvements at Wentwood Park and Wood Lake Playground improvements, and an amount not to exceed $217,108 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16G is an ordinance approving an agreement with the firm of Digital Engineering and Imaging Incorporated for professional services associated with the design of Loyola Drive improvements, Veterans Boulevard to I-10, in an amount not to exceed $167,737 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16H is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from 3Cs Property Incorporated for the purchase of batcher, mud, and spillway dirt on an as-needed basis in accordance with sealed bid number 15-6263, and approving a contract in an amount not to exceed $10,000 per year for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16I is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Tech 21 LLC in an amount of $29,423 to furnish and install ceramic roof coating for the Kenner Pavilion roof in accordance with sealed bid number 15-6261 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16J is an ordinance accepting the responsive bid received from Tech 21 LLC and in the amount of $26,312 to furnish and install ceramic roof coating for the Kenner Theater roof in accordance with sealed bid number 15-6260 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16K is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid from RAMJ Construction LLC for an annual contract to provide cleaning and flushing subsurface drain lines as needed in accordance with sealed bid number 15-6258 and an amount not to exceed $200,000 per year for the Department of Public Works. Item 16L is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Gottfried Contracting LLC in the amount of $186,300 to furnish and install a carbon absorption system with wet hydrogen sulfide monitors and a biotrickling filter system for the lift station at 39th and Arkansas in accordance with sealed bid number 15-6257 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16M is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Smith & Wesson Corporation for the purchase of 194 Smith & Wesson M&P 40 caliber semi-automatic pistols with night sights and associated magazines and magazine disconnect safeties in the amount of $75,660 and declaring 194 used Smith & Wesson M&P 40 caliber semi-automatic pistols with associated night sight and associated 3 magazines no longer needed for public purposes upon receipt of said pistols and authorizing the trade-in of said used pistols and associated equipment for a trade-in credit value of $360 per unit in accordance with sealed bid number 15-6264 for the Kenner Police Department. Item 16N is an ordinance approving the utilization of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office contract number 15A-1501 with Lamarck Ford Incorporated for the purchase of vehicles on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $900,000 annually. Item 17 is reports from the council and our special committees.
Council members, do we have anybody that has any?
I know Councilmember Klein would like to speak under this issue.
Councilmember Klein. Can you put his?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to announce that there's a new store going in at the Pavilion Mall at the corner of West Esplanade and Chateau Boulevards. It's called At Home. It's a home decor superstore. They sell such things as furniture, art, decor, pillows, patio and outdoor furniture, rugs and curtains, housewares, etc. They've been in business since 1979. They now operate in 22 states, and there's 23 outlets in Texas alone. So we look forward to working with At Home, and we hope that they are successful as other businesses are in Kenner. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also wanted to add some things about the Esplanade Mall. You know, the mall is alive and well. The mall's been there for a long time. It's a safe place to shop, dine, and also watch movies. As you know, there's bright spots in and around the mall. We have Zia's Restaurant, we got Olive Garden, we have Copeland's, we got Stingrays. They're all doing very well. Also, a lot of the department stores are doing fine. Dillard's, Macy's, Target, they're all doing fine. We have a new theater there. We have a brand-new dental clinic called Exceptional Dental Clinic. And as you know, as in entrance of the mall, we have a new Goodyear store, and that's being constructed right now. So we, as councilmen, Ms. DeFrancis and I, are working hard to try to fill the Pavilion Mall as well as the Esplanade Mall. Also, we have vacant property where the old show was, the holiday show, and we're in the works with getting something there. So we're working on that. Right now, it's 9 acres and it's vacant. So we look forward to having new ownership of that property and something constructed there that will be useful for the city of Kenner. Thank you.
Councilmember DeFrances, you have the floor.
I just wanted to mention something to add on to what Councilman Klein mentioned. When I was working with Arnold Cooper, who manages the mall for the Stair Company, where At Home is going in, one of the things I pushed so very hard with them was to try to get something unique, something that we did not have in the rest of Jefferson Parish or in the city of Kenner, because we need to attract people to Kenner. We have to get them to come here first. And so there is no other At Home anywhere in the state of Louisiana. We will be the first to have it. And so whenever you have something new, hopefully people will be curious and want to come and see what we have to offer. So we're very hopeful that this will bring some new people into Kenner, and it will stimulate many more stores to come and relocate here. And I just want to mention something since our police chief is gone. I'll take this moment if you don't mind. The 32nd class of the Kenner Citizens Police Academy is going to be beginning on July 21st at 6:30 p.m. at the police complex. And I've taken it. I don't know who else has here, but it has been something very positive, and I would encourage people to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to repeat again, we said early in the meeting about the music in the park, the dates, and we also mentioned the dates for the movies in the park. I just wanted to ask Mr. Mayor Coley, we didn't mention the movies, the names. Would you have that? If not, we can, you can always look on the website to get it, but if you have it, I think it's a good thing to get out as soon as possible.
No, I apologize. We do have them listed on some of the signs that are around town. I'm aware of them. I just, off the top of my head, I cannot remember.
I understand. At our next meeting, we'll have opportunity to have it and then put it out there again, and
Absolutely.
they can go on the website to see it. Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. We have none. Item 19 is unfinished business and motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 43 years. I want to comment on yet another lawsuit that's been filed against the city of Kenner. This lawsuit stems from the wrongful termination of one of our employees that went before the Civil Service Board back in October. And our employee got a favorable ruling. The administration is not in full compliance with the ruling of that Civil Service Board. And that's one of the things that stems this recent lawsuit. And my source on this is the Times-Picayune and the Advocate ran the story. Now, the second thing I want to comment on, I want to direct this to you, Councilman Klein, and the people that was here from JEDCO. Much discussion in here tonight about the business community. And I'm glad to see there is a store going in there where the old Academy Sports Building was. But your comments about the mall, Councilman Klein, I beg to differ with you. I understand there's 2 more stores that left the Esplanade Mall. One of them was American Eagle, and the other one was a ladies' apparel shop. I forget the name of that one. But 2 more have left the Esplanade Mall, so I beg to differ with you that the mall is live and well. Okay? Now, anybody got any comments, any questions for me?
Well,
thank you.
oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Vera Perkins?
Good
If you
evening.
could state your name and address for the
Vera Niece Perkins, 2515 Short Street, a lifetime resident of Kenner, Louisiana. I'm here basically to ask for the council's financial support. Just want to briefly let you know, Michelle Johnson, my daughter, was a 23-year veteran of the United States Air Force National Guard. She retired in 2012 with the rank of Master Sergeant after touring overseas, including Saudi Arabia and Baghdad. She was in need of 2 lungs and a heart transplant.
So you can,
Veterans Day, Houston Methodist accepted her after the VA hospital rejected her, as well as some other facilities in Louisiana. They said due to the risk of the procedure. On Veterans Day, our prayers were answered, and she was approved for a transplant by a courageous team at Houston Methodist Hospital, where she is now. She has received a heart and lung transplant on Good Friday. Last week, our God is so awesome. She's wearing a new heart and new lungs, and she's saying, I'm changed for good. I thank everybody in Kenner, everybody in the city of New Orleans. People online have been giving her financial support. The military people gave her a big fundraiser in January. I think they raised over $6 grand, but it's not enough. Over $50,000 or more may be needed to fund this big, expensive surgery. Her baby sister is in Houston right now with her. I just left last night. She's recovering beautifully. The doctors there said it's a miracle, but it's God's miracle. She has gone through many things. I mean, with the military, they said this was diagnosed in 2008, but she is unable to work anymore. She's unable to function. Thank God she had no husband or no children. But she left her home in La Place, and her baby sister's with her right now. It may take a year, may take shorter time than that for her to recover totally. She's gone through a lot, and she's the most generous person I know. She shared her home resources with family, friends, and anybody in need. Michelle has a smile that can brighten anyone's day, and even though she went through a major crisis, she continues to smile. She was an avid cook who can recall every recipe from celebrity chefs like Rachel Ray, Paula Deen, Carla Hall, even Julia Child. She lost her personal collection of recipes in the flood that followed Hurricane Isaac in 2012. Her home was totally messed up, but that's all been redone. Her goal was to publish her own cookbook with recipes passed down from relatives. There's no rich relative in our family, but we believe that God is able to provide the resources so that my daughter can go through this without any major problems. I believe God is able to use you, the council people and all. We need your prayers and your support. There's online donations can be done, or you can make out a check to my child, Michelle Johnson. Fox 8 had a beautiful movie done while she was at work, at her house, and at this party that the military gave her, and they raised over $6 grand. It's not enough. I'm pleading for your financial support. If you want to go online, I have the information here, GoFundMe.com/AMMOSW. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Carroll has.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Perkins, you know, I just like to say that we did pray for Michelle at the beginning of the meeting, the entire council and everyone here. And, we understand, we personally don't understand when a mother child is ill and the things that you and your family are going through. We can continue to pray, and we will. I would like to personally thank you. You and your family has been part of the city of Kenner your entire life. My relatives, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. So you have given a lot to the city, and the information that you shared with us tonight, I'm sure it wasn't easy to get up there and to say that, and it takes courage to do that. The information that you shared, if I'll get Kelly to get the information to have at my office. If anybody within the city or the council needs to get it, please call my office. We have it on our District 1 Facebook page and through other venues within the city. So again, we will keep you in our prayers, and we wish the best for your family and for Michelle. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Barella, I'd like to say that, the mall is owned by the Simon Property Group, and they're a huge mall operator. They operate over 109 malls, not throughout the United States, but throughout the world. They have many malls over in Europe, in Asia, as well as North America. And they've hired an outside consultant to help them bring in some new retail businesses. And that's what we're working with as the council members and administration, as well as the Simon Group themselves. So hopefully, we'll have some new stores coming there soon.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember DeFrances, second by Councilman Reno to adjourn.